Welcome to County Board Wrap-Up, where each month we chat with the County Board Chair and a guest about some of the key decisions the board made at its public meeting. We're joined today, as always, by Board Chair Jay Fisette and Board Member Christian Dorsey. Thank you both for being here today. I'm your host, Kara O'Donnell. Now let's start off. I can't believe it's this time of year already, but we're talking budget. The county manager gave his proposed budget to the board to review recently, and what are some of the key elements in this year's budget? Some of the things that are really going to affect the taxpayers the most?
I'll start, Jay. So, this year the county manager got direction from the board last year to present a budget that maintained our existing levels of service and to do so within the tax rate. And then if there were any extraordinary needs to propose a plan to deal with those. So basically the base budget continues a commitment to economic development, also increasing our commitment to certain core services that had been historically lacking, such as street lights, our paving program, and making sure that we continued our commitment to the social safety net in the field of human services. So the budget very much looks like a full, robust Arlington program meeting those core needs with a couple of big add-ons. And those being Metro and schools.
Yeah. I think the manager came forward, and it's important to reiterate, this is the manager's proposal. I do that all the time. The board gave the guidance at the front, he met it, and now it's been received by us, and now we take it to the community, and it's our budget to work on. But the two areas that were identified last fall that were potential areas of extraordinary need were school growth. The enrollment growth was not embedded in his base budget. The schools were given sort of the increase in revenue from assessments to do what they're doing, but that didn't cover fully that enrollment growth. And the other thing is Metro. We got this guy represents us on Metro, and he knows better than anybody, and we've all read about it. There are enormous bills coming due to keep the system running, even as it is, create a sustainable future will be a big challenge for us down the road in terms of a new dedicated source of funding. But the manager identified those two as requiring some additional money, so we took his advice at this point in the process and advertised a potential increase in the tax rate by 2 pennies. 1 penny for schools, 1 penny for Metro. And now we'll have the discussion of whether we need to do that or not.
So this is really just the start of the process as we kind of begin the back and forth on this.
Next comes the community input. Two months of intensive work sessions with departments. We ask a lot of questions. We hear from our advisory commissions. We hear from the community. We have public budget hearings, all culminating in April when we have to make a decision.
Now, Christian, Jay said you're the representative on the Metro board. It is, as he said, no secret that Metro is in a lot of need of extra funding. But what is the county's role in determining that kind of dedicated funding? You hear talk of rate hikes on Metro, of decreased service. Will this be able to alleviate that kind of thing for Arlingtonians, or where does kind of the lines?
You are going to be talking about this a lot for a long time.
And this is a great question, Kara, because it's very convoluted, or maybe a better way of saying it, it's very detailed. Metro is funded in a variety of ways. The most important thing to keep in mind is that there is no direct funding for Metro's operating budget that comes from the federal government. It has to be picked up by the District of Columbia, the state of Maryland, and the Commonwealth of Virginia, largely through the localities in Virginia to which Metro serves.
And I just want to highlight this because I emphasize it all the time. In Maryland, it's the state that pays. In Virginia, the predominant responsibility is with the local governments, a very different construct for how Virginia pays its portion of the bill.
That's right.
Through us.
Our general fund and our tax dollars go to support Metro's operating budget. So when Metro's general manager came up with a plan for meeting the huge, nearly $300 million operating deficit, there was no one area that you could look at that could solve that whole thing. So there is a combination of management efficiencies. There are slight service reductions, which I think will be made apparent very soon, are ones that keep the system operating efficiently but are not going to be punitive to riders. And then there's also a modest fare increase that's going to be proposed and probably enacted. And then, of course, it's jurisdictions like Arlington who have to go to our resident taxpayers, and we're going to have to need a little bit more because we just can't shoulder the responsibility with current levels of spending.
And then Jay, on the schools front, this has also been an ongoing issue. We have more and more enrollment in the schools. You hear about that. So this extra funding for schools is truly a necessity at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Arlingtonians have always prioritized education. Whether you have kids in the schools or not, education is about the future, right? We are victims of our own success in this regard because our schools are so good that they're attracting more kids. Yeah. And we're attracting a new cohort of families into the community as single-family homes, and primarily in the single-family homes. Keep that in mind. That's where most of this new enrollment growth is coming from. But we can't ask the schools to continue to add 600, 800, 1,000 kids a year without recognizing that that is an extraordinary need. And we partner with them every day, every month, every year, and we'll work this out.
Okay. Now, in addition to that 2-cent property tax rate increase, we did ask the manager to propose some cuts. Let's talk a little bit about those.
Sure.
I mean, good government always requires that you should be looking at what you're doing and figuring out if you can do it better for less. Efficiency should always be a hallmark of what you're striving to do. So, you know, even though there wasn't unanimous agreement that this was the proper method, I think the board is generally together in always wanting to push our manager to just look under every rock to see if there is a better way that can provide more value at lower costs. We would do that even if we didn't have these extraordinary needs. It's really a function of what makes a government effective and strong. So as part of this budget process, we have asked the manager to come forth with other options for reducing costs, given that we are putting everything on the table. You know, this is going to be a time where people say the budget doesn't address this need, we think you should invest more. So we know that we're going to get that from the community. We know about the needs for schools in Metro. So this is just part of a good practice to see if you can find other ways of doing more with fewer dollars.
Right, we're scrubbing now. He scrubbed the last months and worked with his departments and asking for this additional sort of the equivalent of 1 penny, $7.5 million in ongoing, a total of about $10 million of reductions. We want those to be out there. They'll be out soon so that the public sees them, so that the community sees what the options before us are as we try to make those decisions in April.
And now really the back and forth process begins. You said you're going to be scheduling, you know, hearing from the community. What are some of the preliminary things that you've already heard from folks?
Oh, well, I think, honestly, you know, we've been hearing about Metro, people writing in saying you got to come up with the money. It's too important to the economy of Arlington and of the region.
That's probably what we've heard most about this far, right?
A lot. We hear from nonprofits who often come in and say, because of one issue or the immigration challenges or another, that we're seeing more need and they'd like additional money. We hear from just about everyone, and it is actually a balanced discussion. You hear from people saying, my tax rate, why are you advertising a 2-penny increase? We don't want to pay more, we're on a fixed income. So we look at the real estate exemption process or deferral process. All of that is part of the debate we're going to have and the discussion we're going to have over the next few months. But you get it from people not wanting to pay more, others who actually do want to pay more because they see the services and the needs, and others asking for more. So we hear it from all sides.
Okay, and then what's the time frame here? When do we finally get to the passing of the budget, the enacting of the budget?
Yeah, the public budget hearing, tax rate hearing are the end of March. I don't have the dates in front of me.
March 28th and 30th, I believe.
28 and 30, and then the budget will be adopted by the mid-April.
The April meeting.
That's right.
April County Board meeting.
All right.
So pretty short time frame, and there are opportunities for the public to get involved, not just at the tax rate hearings, not just by sending us letters, emails, or visits, seeing us as we walk about in the community. But we also have these work sessions that Jay talked about where we look at a lot of our departments, our department budgets and the department programs to really figure out how they play a role in meeting the goals. Those are open to the public. Those are televised for people at home. So there are multiple ways for people to really impact and let us hear their opinions this budget season.
And we have advisory commissions in a whole bunch of areas. They come to these hearings, so they give us their input on whether it's the environmental issues or the human service issues and others. And we have a fiscal affairs advisory commission that specifically digs into, just as we do, kind of complementary to us, and they present to us at these meetings too. So sometimes we get really good insights from citizens through that advisory group.
All right, well, thank you very much, Jay, and this is certainly going to be an interesting budget year. If you want to learn more about the proposed FY 2018 budget and ways to weigh in on the process, visit our county website, arlingtonva.us, and just search for keyword FY18 budget. We'll be right back. Welcome back to County Board Wrap, where we take a deep dive into the important issues that come before the County Board. We're chatting with Board Chair Jay Fisette and Board Member Christian Dorsey today. Now, of course, the Board took several actions at its February meeting, one of which was the Western Roslyn Action Plan, or Area Plan,
yeah.
Which a major mixed-use redevelopment project. Tell us about the action that took place this month. We've talked about it before here on the show.
Okay. This is the heart of Roslyn's down below. You go up Wilson Boulevard a bit, you see the old Wilson School. Mm-hmm. So this was a plan, and the process took us years to really design this. A mix of private property, school property, county property where that old fire station is and a little park, and then adjacent to that, in fact, some property owned by the Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing. A private nonprofit does affordable housing. After multiple years, we came up with a great plan of how to best use this. And what we had the sort of fun doing this last weekend was actually adopting the buildings that fulfilled the plan. So you had a couple of residential buildings with on the private property. Then you had within that a fire station, a new park, a new Wilson School, which will be the new home of H.B. Woodlawn. Very interesting architecture, a lot of interesting open spaces and use of the roof, and then a new affordable housing project as well, which will have a significant increase in the number of affordable units for people of low and moderate income. So it was really a very complicated, multifaceted deal. That's the kind of thing we have to do with limited land in the county and leveraging private partners to get some of our good community needs taken care of.
What was really the goal here? Was the goal really preserving the affordable housing? Was it getting the school?
Above.
Okay.
All the above. I mean, that's the beauty of it. You have multiple needs being taken care of in one large consolidated piece of land.
Okay. What are you hearing from residents, from businesses in the area? Is everybody happy and on board with this project?
You know, it was a long process.
Yes, I remember. Yeah.
Jay talked about, it involves multiple landowners, many more stakeholders, and so each of those stakeholders probably would have desired a different ideal outcome for what this all looked like. But when you put it all together, think about what was accomplished. You've got a residential component that includes rental and home ownership. That's going to be available for market rate, meeting a variety of needs, all sorts of different bedroom sizes to accommodate different kinds of families. New modern school that's going to, in one building, house the HB program as well as the Stratford program that serves our special needs constituencies. We've got more park space in Roslyn, better program park space in Roslyn, which has been a critical need for the community, and then 240 units of affordable housing. So if you could think in the abstract how you could do all of that within essentially a super block, most would not think that it was possible, and this made it happen. So despite the messiness, and we'll learn some things about how we can do it better process-wise, the outcome, I think, is going to be a huge contribution to Arlington's diversity and vibrance for years to come.
Yeah, we'll do a little after action, which was a suggestion by a resident, and I think we feel it's a good idea. We can't forget that old fire station, which I mentioned, is actually...
I was just going to bring up, we had some trade-offs with the temporary fire station. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we're getting a new fire station built by the private sector underneath this large residential building. We also are getting, along with the park, a very nice field, that accompanies the school there. So all in all, complicated, but real good stuff. And the inconveniences with the temporary fire station, it's just that, temporary. It is temporary, not the ideal. We didn't want it, schools didn't want it, but it was sort of thrown in our lap. It was the best way out. Okay, but let's turn now to a little more affordable housing on the other end of the corridor, so to speak, in Ballston, and the news with the Central United Church.
Well, that's another project that is trying to do a lot within a fairly limited footprint, which quite frankly is going to be the way anything happens in Arlington for the foreseeable future. And you know, you had the church, which owns property there, which due to, I think, a declining congregation and a need to maybe re-envision how they better utilize the space. They also offer a lot of services out of that building. Wanted to do something that furthered their mission, which included an affordable housing component in a larger residential building while maintaining child care, which is currently on site, the church's needs for congregational space, as well as some other mission-driven activities to help the indigent with food services, et cetera. So they wanted to do all of that on this one site, where presently there was just a church. So this is pretty complicated, and it involved intense work by our planning staff, creativity on the part of the church in coming up with the concept, and then halfway through the process, or maybe even 2/3 of the way through the process, there was an issue about a burial ground that is on site, which needed to be accommodated. So you have this historic element, all of those different program elements, limited footprint, and then we had not a deadline, but we had a goal of seeing this project through to completion by the 1st of March.
Oh, okay.
So we had to work hard, and there were a lot of various commissions and groups, and of course our staff, that worked around the clock to make it happen.
Wow.
Exactly.
And a lot of moving parts in a very small space, just kind of like we have in Western Roslyn.
Yes.
So
It's the small church many of us would know, right across from the Ballston Metro.
okay, right off of
Across
Fairfax, there.
Drive.
Yeah.
And you know, it is in the dense corridor, so good for them to do their discernment and decide that their future was going to be around creating some affordable housing for people of low and moderate income. That's not an easy choice to make, but a difficult one to pull off, and they did it.
And it's, what, about 120 affordable units in there, I think?
I don't remember the number, but it's about 40% of the
Okay.
total
Yeah.
number of units.
Right.
Okay, so not an insignificant number of units
No.
in
That's
there
right.
to really kind of help meet their needs.
Absolutely.
And just like Roslyn, right
Right by the metro.
right by
there.
the metro. I mean, Roslyn's a half a mile from 2 metros. This is across the street. So that's an incredibly important thing that furthers our goals for affordable housing overall.
Right.
All right, wonderful. Well, we're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll talk about new information that the county is making available to immigrants in these uncertain times. Don't go away. Welcome back for our final segment in today's County Board Wrap-Up. I'm Kara O'Donnell, and as usual, I'm chatting today with Board Chair Jay Fisette and his guest, Board Member Christian Dorsey, about the key actions the board took in February, decisions that affect you, your family, and our community. Now, we've been talking since the beginning of the year about Arlington as an inclusive, welcoming community, and we took another step forward in helping our immigrant population here. Let's talk a little about the new website.
Sure. You know, we're out in the community. We know there's a lot of angst in Arlington. And that isn't just from people who are foreign-born or immigrants. It's from many people beyond that in our community. This administration's only been in office, believe it or not, about 6 weeks, 7 weeks. It feels like a lot more tumult than that. And as a result of the new executive orders, of the uncertainty, there's a lot of this is uncertainty. It's not even actions that have been taken. Some of it is actions in response. Some of it is uncertainty and fear about what could come next or what that has been done, what it means to people's lives. So across the country, localities are responding to this, trying to reassert and reassure people where we can about our nature as a local community and being welcoming, respecting people in this community, whatever your immigration status, what services are available to you, whatever your immigration status, and how you can trust our police department, because it's our police department that keeps us safe.
Absolutely.
And many of these changes and this angst that's created is not helping in that regard. So we created a website. We tried to package all the most frequently asked questions, a range of services. We unveiled that just a week or two ago. So you can go to the county website, just go to the search engine, put in immigration. It'll be the first thing that pops up. And it should answer many of those questions. This is a living, breathing document. It will evolve, it will change as the rules change and as new information becomes available. But we wanted to provide sort of a one-stop shop,
Yeah.
a clearinghouse of information for our community as best we could today.
And this website is available in English and in Spanish, correct?
That's right.
Correct.
That's right.
And from what I've seen, it's pretty much, it's a document, as you said, living, breathing. All the information on it is always kind of being updated, but
Right.
resources, frequently asked questions, places to go for our immigrant population,
That's right.
information they may need.
I mean, you know, as Jay said, there's so much uncertainty, which is really the key word here. People just don't know, and that uncertainty breeding anxiety. It's, well, what can you as a local community do? Well, maybe we can share information and make sure people understand not only what is happening and what's being proposed, what are the policies of Arlington County, what are other organizations that are not affiliated with Arlington doing to help people who have legal services needs, who have food assistance needs, who have you know, any potential need for assistance. We want to at least link people with where they can go for help. And then we also want to make sure people understand what we're doing on the school side.
Right.
So we have cross links with that. And really we hope that people bookmark, save, use this page frequently so that in the event they should themselves or know someone who is being swept up in immigration issues, they'll at least have a credible source to turn to.
And I know we talked about this last month a little bit, but just to keep everyone clear, because there's a lot of conflicting information about there, on the idea of a sanctuary city. Arlington is inclusive, but by definition, we are not a sanctuary city, correct?
That's right. And Kara, there's a personal pet peeve of mine. The word sanctuary really connotes that if you are here, you will be safe. And that means you will be safe from any action which is taken against you. And there's no community in the United States that can, with a degree of certainty, call themselves a sanctuary from federal law enforcement. So in Arlington, we're not going to send out that signal when we in fact can't back it up. So this language of being inclusive and welcoming and then backing it up with all of the resources available and how we go about policing our community, making sure people know that we don't cooperate with immigration enforcement, that's what we can do, and that's what we can honestly say to our community versus using a term which may connote something very different that I'm afraid we'd end up disappointing people in.
There are several websites out there that on the national level that have mistakenly listed quite a few communities, not just Arlington.
And there is no formal definition of what a sanctuary city is. There's no one definition. So a lot of different cities that have so defined themselves use different explanations and criteria for that. But our community policing we've had in place for 20 plus years. That has led to a community with a very low crime rate, a very safe place where people get along with one another from whatever background, whatever neighborhood. It works. Arlington has always worked. This is an unnecessary pressure on our system. And our fear is, in fact, that because of this anxiety that's been provoked and people feeling nervous to go out of their home, to do some of the activities in the community, to engage with the police in a helpful and preventive way, that helps share information and prevent potential problems, that we will actually create problems. You need a community to be integrated, to be connected, to be trusting of one another, and this has begun, these new federal actions have begun slowly to degrade that, and that's probably our greatest fear.
At the end of the day, what is it you want the people who are living, working here in Arlington, regardless of immigration status, what is it you want them to know?
I mean, that's it. One's immigration status does not in any way impact the value that you have in our community and our desire to see that you be able to work and earn a living, that your children be able to go to school, that you be able to walk freely in society with the comfort of knowing that your public safety officials will protect you if you are a victim and you need public safety assistance, that it will be there for you, that this community is as yours as it is for anyone else. And that's what we're trying to communicate. And if people want to call us sanctuary because of it, we'll let them do it. but we want to describe accurately what we do so that people can get beyond the buzzwords and know that we think that they're valuable no matter what their circumstances are.
Our police department is here to protect, to serve. They do not have a role in federal immigration. They will not pull someone aside or investigate with the purpose of identifying their immigration status. And that has led us to have a very safe and well-functioning community for a long time. So the message is, please trust that. Know your rights. Know, in fact, what ICE can do and can't do. But the county and the police officers here are here to help.
And on that note, that brings us to the end of another month's County Board Wrap-Up. I'd like to thank Jay Fisette and Christian Dorsey for being with us today. And thank you for joining us. Remember, you can find much more about all the topics we discussed today and more on our county website. We have a site devoted entirely to civic engagement where you can share your ideas and get involved in many county projects. So please visit topics.arlingtonva.us/engage and let us know what you're thinking. We'll see you next month.